Speak English presentation fluently. Hello, everyone. My name is Tom, and welcome to English Stories Podcast. I'm really happy you're here today because in this episode we are talking about something many English learners struggle with: how to speak English presentation fluently. Let me ask you a simple question to start. Have you ever known exactly what you wanted to say, but when it was time to give a presentation in English, your mind suddenly went blank? You stand there, your heart beats faster, and the words just don't come out. You are not alone. This is one of the most common problems for beginners and even for people who have studied English for many years. Many learners are afraid of making mistakes. They worry about grammar, pronunciation, and vocabulary, and this fear stops them from speaking naturally. Others think first in their own language, maybe Vietnamese, then try to translate everything into English in their head. This takes time, and while you are translating, you lose your flow. As a result, your speech becomes slow, broken, and uncomfortable. Another very common problem is speaking in short, disconnected sentences. You say one sentence, then pause for a long time, then say another sentence. It doesn't sound smooth, and it makes you feel even more nervous. When this happens, you may think, "My English is bad," or "I'm not good at presentations." But the truth is, the problem is not your English level. The problem is how you think about fluency. Many people believe that fluency means speaking very fast, like a native speaker, without any pauses. This belief creates a lot of pressure. Today, I want to help you change that idea. Fluency is not about speed. Fluency is about speaking naturally and clearly so people can understand you. It's okay to speak slowly. It's okay to pause. It's okay to use simple words. A fluent speaker is someone who can express ideas in a calm and continuous way, even with basic English. You don't need perfect grammar. You don't need difficult vocabulary. You don't need to sound like a native speaker. You just need to sound like yourself, but in English. In this podcast, especially for beginners, we focus on easy sentences, clear structure, and natural rhythm. I want you to feel relaxed when you listen. Imagine you are practicing with a friend, not taking a test. If you can say one idea clearly, then move to the next idea, you're already speaking fluently. So, if you have ever frozen during a presentation, if you have ever felt embarrassed because your English didn't come out the way you wanted, this episode is for you. Stay with me, listen carefully, and remember this one thing from the start. Fluency is not about speaking fast. Fluency is about speaking naturally and clearly. Now let's talk about an important question. What is fluency? Many English learners think fluency means perfect grammar, perfect pronunciation, and long, complex sentences. But this idea is not true, and it often makes learning English much harder than it needs to be. Fluency does not mean grammar perfect. Of course, grammar is useful, and learning grammar can help you improve over time. But fluency is something different. Fluency is about communication. It is about being able to speak continuously with fewer pauses in a way that other people can understand easily. When you are fluent, your listener does not need to work hard to understand you. They can follow your ideas naturally, even if you make small mistakes. This is very important for presentations. In a presentation, your goal is not to show how much grammar you know. Your goal is to share ideas clearly. A fluent speaker can keep going. They do not stop after every word to think or translate. They may pause sometimes, but thus pauses feel natural, not stressful. Another key part of fluency is using language that feels familiar to you. Long and complicated sentences may look good in a textbook, but in real life, they are hard to remember and hard to say, especially when you are nervous. For example, imagine you try to say a long sentence with many clauses and advanced vocabulary during a presentation. Your brain has to work very hard. You may forget a word, lose your place, or panic. This often leads to silence, broken speech, or giving up on the sentence halfway through. This is why long, complex sentences are not a good choice for fluent speaking, especially for beginners. On the other hand, short and familiar sentences are powerful. They are easy to remember, easy to say, and easy for the listener to understand. When you use short sentences, you feel more confident. Your speech becomes smoother, and you can move from one idea to the next without stress. For example, instead of trying to say everything in one long sentence, you can break your idea into 2 or 3 simple sentences. Each sentence carries one clear idea. This makes your presentation sound calm and organized. Fluency also means accepting that mistakes are normal. Even native speakers make mistakes when they speak. They repeat words, change sentences, or correct themselves. This is part of natural speech. When you allow yourself to speak without chasing perfection, your fluency improves naturally. You stop worrying about being correct, and you start focusing on being clear. Remember, fluency is not about sounding smart. It is about being understood. If your listener understands you easily, you are fluent. So when you practice speaking for presentations, don't aim for perfect grammar or long sentences. Aim for continuous speech, fewer stressful pauses, and clear meaning. Use simple words you already know. Use short sentences you can say comfortably. This is the real foundation of fluency, and it is something you can start building today, even with basic English. Now let's move on to one of the most important parts of speaking English presentations fluently, using a simple and clear structure. Many beginners feel nervous not because their English is bad, but because they don't know how to organize what they want to say. When your ideas are not organized, your mind feels crowded, and this makes speaking much harder. That is why a simple presentation structure is your best friend. Today, we will use a very easy 3-part structure that works perfectly for beginners: opening, body, and ending. Let's start with the opening. The opening is the moment when you begin speaking, and it is often the most stressful moment of the whole presentation. Your heart may beat fast, your hands may feel cold, and your mind may feel empty. This is normal. The good news is that you don't need to be creative or impressive at this stage. You only need a clear and familiar sentence to help you start smoothly. Simple opening sentences like, "Hello, everyone. Today I'd like to talk about," or "My presentation is about," are extremely powerful. These sentences are easy to remember, and once you say them, you are already speaking. This helps reduce stress immediately because your presentation has officially started. You are no longer waiting. You are doing it. The opening has one main goal: to help you begin without panic. You don't need jokes, stories, or long introductions. Just say hello, say your topic, and move on. When you keep your opening simple, you give your brain time to relax and prepare for the next part. After the opening, we move to the body of the presentation. This is where you share your main ideas. Many learners make the mistake of trying to say too much at once. They want to explain everything in one long sentence or one long paragraph. This quickly becomes confusing and stressful. Instead, the body should be divided into 2 or 3 small points, not more. 2 or 3 is perfect for beginners. Each point should focus on one clear idea. When you know you only need to talk about one idea at a time, speaking becomes much easier. To move smoothly between these points, you can use very simple linking words such as first, next, and finally. These words are simple, but they are very effective. They guide both you and your listener through the presentation. When you say first, your listener knows you are starting the first idea, and your brain also knows what to do. You focus only on the first point. When you say next, you close the first idea and move calmly to the second one. When you say finally, you know you are almost finished, which helps you feel more confident and relaxed. Another important rule for the body is one sentence, one idea. This rule can change everything. When you try to put many ideas into one sentence, your speech becomes heavy and difficult to control. You may forget words, lose grammar, or stop in the middle. But when each sentence has only one idea, your speech becomes light and clear. You say one sentence, finish the idea, pause briefly, then move to the next sentence. This creates a natural rhythm that sounds fluent and confident. It also makes your presentation easier to understand. Your listener does not need to guess what you mean. Everything is clear and simple. Remember, in a presentation, clarity is more important than complexity. Simple sentences do not make you sound weak. They make you sound confident and professional. Now, let's talk about the ending. The ending is often easier than the opening, but many learners still feel unsure about how to finish. Some people think they need a strong or emotional conclusion, but for beginners, this is not necessary. A simple and polite ending is enough. Sentences like, "That's all for my presentation," or "Thank you for listening," are perfect. They clearly show that your presentation is finished. They are easy to remember, and they leave a positive and respectful impression. The goal of the ending is not to impress. The goal is to close your presentation calmly and clearly. When you finish with a simple ending, you avoid confusion and awkward silence. You also give yourself a moment to relax and feel proud of what you have done. You spoke in English. You shared your ideas. That is already a success. When you use this 3-part structure again and again, it becomes natural. Over time, you will stop thinking about the structure because it will already be in your mind. This frees your energy to focus on speaking naturally and confidently. So remember this simple formula. Start with a clear opening. Share 2 or 3 ideas in the body using simple linking words, and finish with a short and polite ending. This structure is not only easy to use, but it is also one of the most effective ways to speak English presentations fluently, especially for beginners. Now let's talk about one of the most powerful secrets to speaking English presentations fluently without stress. Speaking without translating in your head. Many learners believe that translating is normal, and at the beginning it is. But if you want to speak more fluently, especially in presentations, you need to reduce this habit step by step. The best way to do this is by using fixed phrases, also called chunks. Chunks are small groups of words that native speakers use again and again. They are not single words, and they are not full, long sentences. They are ready-made pieces of language that you can use instantly. When you use chunks, your brain does not need to build the sentence from zero. You simply take the whole phrase and say it. This is why chunks are so powerful for fluency. For example, phrases like, I want to talk about, in my opinion, and for example, are extremely useful in presentations. You don't need to think about grammar when you use them. You don't need to translate them from your first language. You already know how they sound and how they are used. You just say them and continue speaking. This makes your speech faster and smoother. When learners translate in the head, the brain does too much work. First, you think of the idea in your own language. Then you look for English words. Then you try to put those words into correct grammar. All of this happens in a very short time, and it creates pressure. That pressure causes long pauses, broken sentences, and nervousness. Chunks remove this pressure. Because chunks are familiar, your brain feels safe using them. This safety allows your speech to flow naturally. Another big benefit of using chunks is that your reaction becomes faster. In a presentation, you don't have time to think carefully about every sentence. You need language that comes out automatically. Chunks help you respond and continue speaking without stopping. For example, if you want to give your opinion instead of thinking, how do I say this in English? You can simply say, in my opinion, and your idea follows naturally. The same is true when giving examples. When you say, for example, your listener immediately understands what is coming next, and your brain feels guided. This creates a strong rhythm in your presentation. Over time, the more you use chunks, the less you will translate. Your brain starts to connect ideas directly to English phrases, not to your first language. This is a very important step toward real fluency. You begin to think in English, not word by word, but idea by idea. To practice this, you should collect useful chunks and practice them out loud. Listen to podcasts, watch simple English videos, and pay attention to common phrases. Repeat them. Use them in your own sentences. The goal is not to memorize hundreds of phrases in one day. The goal is to use a few chunks again and again until they feel natural. When chunks become part of your speaking habit, presentations become much easier. You no longer feel stuck at the beginning of a sentence. You have a clear and comfortable way to continue. So remember, if you want to speak English presentations fluently, stop focusing on individual words and start focusing on chunks. They help your brain relax, reduce translation, and build faster, more confident speaking. Now let's talk about speaking rhythm and natural pauses, because this is something many learners misunderstand. A lot of people believe that to sound fluent, they must speak fast. They think fast speech means good English. In reality, the opposite is often true. Speaking slowly is not a weakness. Speaking slowly is a strength, especially in presentations. When you speak slowly, you give your brain time to think and your listener time to understand. Your pronunciation becomes clearer. Your sentences become more controlled, and your confidence increases. Native speakers do not speak fast all the time. They change their speed. They slow down for important points and pause to create meaning. Pauses are not mistakes. Pauses are part of natural speech. A very useful habit is to pause for 1 or 2 seconds before a new idea. This short pause helps your brain prepare for what comes next. It also signals to the listener that a new point is coming. Another good time to pause is after an important sentence. This gives your words weight and allows the listener to remember what you just said. When you use pauses correctly, you sound calmer, more confident, and more natural, even if your English is simple. These pauses make you sound more like a native speaker, not because your accent changes, but because your rhythm feels natural. Now let's move on to how you can practice effectively to improve all of this. Practice does not mean studying grammar for hours or memorizing long lists of words. Effective practice is simple and consistent. One of the best ways to practice is listening to short podcasts in easy English. Short podcasts are perfect because they do not overload your brain. You can listen carefully, notice pronunciation, rhythm, and common phrases. Don't try to understand every word. Focus on the flow of the language. Another very powerful method is shadowing. Shadowing means you listen to a speaker and speak along with them at the same time. You do not stop the audio. You do not translate. You simply listen and repeat as closely as you can. At first, this may feel difficult, but it is extremely effective. Shadowing trains your mouth, your ears, and your brain to work together. It helps you copy natural rhythm, pauses, and intonation. Over time, your speaking becomes smoother without conscious effort. In addition to listening and shadowing, you should also practice speaking by yourself. Speaking in front of a mirror is a great exercise. When you look at yourself, you become more aware of your posture, your facial expressions, and your confidence. It may feel uncomfortable at first, but this discomfort disappears quickly. Another excellent tool is recording your own voice. When you listen to yourself, you may notice things you didn't realize while speaking. You might hear that your speech is actually clearer than you thought. Or you might notice where you pause too much or speak too fast. This awareness helps you improve step by step. Remember, improvement does not come from one long practice session. It comes from small practice every day. Even 10 minutes a day can make a big difference if you are consistent. Now, let's bring everything together. As we come to the end of this episode, a good English presentation does not require perfect grammar or advanced vocabulary. A good presentation needs a clear structure, simple sentences, natural rhythm, and regular practice. That's it. You do not need to be perfect to speak fluently. You only need to be clear and calm. If you make mistakes, that is okay. Mistakes mean you are using the language. Keep listening. Keep practicing. Listen again. Practice a little every day. And most importantly, be kind to yourself in this learning process. Thank you so much for watching and listening today. I'm Tom, and this is English Stories Podcast. If you found this video helpful, please subscribe to the channel for more easy English presentations and speaking practice. I really appreciate your support, and I look forward to seeing you again in the next video.